School anxiety can be rough on the child as well as the parent. It is difficult to force your child to go to school when they are crying, when they're reporting that their stomach hurts or they feel like they're going to throw up, or when they're visibly upset and scared. Hi, I'm Dr. Karen Pasco, a holistic psychologist specializing in the treatment of anxiety and depression, incorporating mind-body strategies from various disciplines. This video, How to Help Your Anxious Kids or Young Teens with School Anxiety, is a guide for you, the parent, to have a discussion about what is going on and why the anxiety is presenting now and about school, and also to get some mind-body strategies that are useful for helping manage your child's anxiety so that they can go to school. Some kids have anxiety and some don't. Some have anxiety about school and some don't. Everyone, adults and kids, have an emotional disposition that comes out under stress. There are 3 types of emotional dispositions. You will likely either default under stress, when the negative emotions tend to come out, to a hot and fiery disposition, presenting as anger and frustration with a short fuse and a hot temper. Or you'll default under stress. Your negative emotions will be depressed and clingy and possessive and feeling very stuck in the mud and unable to move. Or the 3rd disposition is the anxious disposition. And under stress, you will become more anxious and fearful and worry about everything that could possibly go wrong. This video is addressing that 3rd disposition in children and young teens and how it relates to school anxiety. Because everyone defaults to one of those 3 emotional dispositions under stress, I want to assure you, the parent, that this is not your fault. There is nothing that you did to create this anxious disposition. Parents are so quick to go and try to figure out what did they do that their child is having such a difficult time with anxiety to go to school. You did not do this. However, there are things that you can do to help a kid with an anxious disposition be able to navigate school anxiety and get to school. If your child has an anxious disposition, that anxiety was likely to show up as school-related anxiety around the 4th grade. Around the 4th grade, age 8 or 9, is when kids developmentally start to be more aware of themselves and others. So they start to care more about what other kids think, what parents think, teachers think, grown-ups think, everybody. So that emotional development and that self-awareness starts to move into the social realm. Well, school is a super social situation. So when someone has an anxious disposition around the 4th grade, age 8 or 9, is when it starts to move into that. Now, some kids do start to have that social anxiety a little bit sooner and some later. But 4th grade is when I start to see kids come in for some help with their school anxiety. And even if I get a kid around middle school to come in for the first time, they will report that they noticed it for themselves around the 4th grade. They just didn't say anything until it got pretty significant and they're really struggling. So around 4th grade is developmentally when it happens. This video is designed for kids around the age 8 or 9 up till about the age 13. Just like it develops in at those times, it also starts to phase out around 14, 15, definitely by 16. It just naturally phases out. However, if you have a child that's struggling in those younger years, the sooner you get the mind-body strategies to help that kid with that anxiety, the faster it's going to get resolved and they're going to be able to get to school much easier. If your child has school-related anxiety, they have probably reported to you that they have stomach aches or they feel like they're gonna throw up. This is a real thing. They are not just saying that to get out of school. 9 out of 10 kids that have anxiety and anxiety about school and things like that report that they have stomach aches or they feel nauseous or sick. And that's partly because there is a direct correlation between the mind and the gut. We know this now. It is definitive. The mind and the gut have a direct relationship. So things that are happening in the mind are directly affecting the gut, the digestive system, the tummy, however we want to say it right now. This happens significantly in kids and young teens because anxiety is a very mind-body condition. It's experienced by ways they're thinking and how they're thinking, but it affects their physiology as well. It affects their heart rate and their breathing rate and pattern, their muscle tension, and then things like tummy aches. Because of this, it's important to teach anxious kids that mind-body connection, that what is happening in their mind is affecting their body, and that way they can learn strategies to help manage it. You will know that the stress and anxiety is causing those tummy aches by being able to remove the stressor and have the stomach upset go away. And it happens pretty quick. If a kid is super stressed about something and starts to feel sick or a stomach ache coming on, and then that stressor is gone, it's pretty surprising how fast the turnaround is to that physical symptom going away. But here's the kicker. Anxiety occurs in our minds. So even if the stressor is not present, if the kid starts thinking about it and worrying about it, the physical symptoms are going to come in. So they might start worrying about school starting up again and start to have those stomach aches even midsummer or some other time when it's actually not happening because the mind is that powerful. You can think yourself into an anxiety experience even when nothing is happening. So again, this makes it really important to teach kids that mind-body connection so they can understand this and be able to implement some mind-body strategies to help themselves out. Before we begin to discuss the mind-body strategies to help out kids and young teens with school-related anxiety, we want to rule a couple things out first. One, if those stomach aches are occurring more frequently than just in school-related situations or anxious-related situations, definitely get a medical evaluation to rule out anything medical going on. Secondly, you want to rule out anything that could be going on at school that is directly causing that anxiety. For instance, if there's a bully situation going on, your child is scared because of a legitimate threat going on there, or if there's a learning disability or anything going on that creates an embarrassing and uncomfortable situation. If a kid is struggling with a learning disability and they cannot retain the information, they cannot process what is happening in school in any kind of reasonable time, definitely have those things ruled out first. But then if those are ruled out and that's not happening and it's more general anxiety that's showing up as school anxiety, then these strategies are going to be very helpful. But rule out stuff first that it could be before moving into this category. Also, let's just say one thing about the difference between an anxious disposition and anxiety showing up as school-related anxiety and an anxiety disorder. If your child has school-related anxiety, that's probably where it's going to show up. If your child is presenting with anxiety symptoms all the time or in more situations than not, please have your child evaluated for an anxiety disorder. That's always worth ruling out as well. Honestly, the mind-body strategies would work both ways, but it's really important to know what is actually happening here. The first strategy that we're going to discuss to help your child or your young teen with school-related anxiety is also the number one rule of parent-child communication, and that is learn to respond rather than react. And what that means is a reaction is an emotional-driven reaction. And when your child has anxiety, they have a lot of emotion going on already. Keep this in mind. Like increases like and opposites balance. So if you approach your child with equal amounts of emotion, you start to get stressed and frustrated, it's just going to increase the overall emotion. Like increases like, opposites balance. So if your child's becoming super emotional, anxious, fearful, crying, feeling like their stomach hurts, present with calm, the opposite disposition. Presenting with calm and respond will give you the chance to respond to the problem rather than react to the emotion you're feeling about the problem. I know it's frustrating. I work with teens and parents all the time on these kinds of things, and it is very frustrating for the parent. And a lot of time there's a parent at their wit's end. They have nothing left to give. This is terribly frustrating and disruptive. If one parent, and it's usually the parent watching this video, usually one parent has already checked out from emotion, try to be as calm as possible when working through these strategies and through this issue of school anxiety. You want to approach with the opposite disposition of your child. The second strategy is also a communication strategy and an emotional based strategy, and it is validate your child's feelings first. What that means is your child has a social emotional need to be understood. Everyone has a social emotional need to be understood. It's driven from within. If your child is very upset, take a moment to validate the experience. Tell your child, I can understand that you feel very scared right now. School can be a scary experience. I understand that new things can be difficult, and I see that you're feeling very upset and very worried about what's going to happen. That's validating, saying that you understand what they are feeling. Now be mindful to not quickly pair that up with, I understand that you feel very scared about school. School's a scary experience, but you have to go. You want to make sure that you're not putting that on the end. The child knows they have to go to school. They absolutely know that. If you don't take the time to validate the feelings first, because that's a social emotional need, the child will continue to express those emotions until they are validated, and it just takes a lot longer. There's timing on this, and there's a lot of nuances on this, but please try to validate the child's feelings first, and then we can move on to the next step of that. Once you have validated your child's experience, take a moment to remind them of a time that they've been successful with this, a time that they thought something was scary and they didn't want to do it and they were feeling anxious, but then they did it and they had a good time. By 4th grade, most kids have had that happen. They didn't want to go to a birthday party that was in a new environment, and so they were really scared, but they went and they had fun. Try to find something like that, because you want to help the child become empowered in these situations. And children, adults really aren't different. Children will only develop that self-confidence, that empowerment, by seeing them overcome things they thought they couldn't do. So even in those micro moments, you went to that party that you thought was scary and you had so much fun with your friends, remind them that they have done this before, because they can continue to build confidence based on each of those experiences that they overcome. So validate the feelings first without that tagline, but you have to go. Remind them of a time that they overcame that. And then ask them, how can I help you get through this scary experience? I know you can, you've done it before, but how can I help you? And that hopefully will be the segue into learning some new strategies to be able to manage that anxiety, that fear, that worry, to allow them to move forward. And here specifically, we're talking about school. So ask them how you can help, and then we will move into the next piece of that. Depending on the age of your child, from a child to a young teen with school anxiety, this may be approached a little bit different. I know I have a bit of a wide range here, but I think I can cover it all, and it's all relevant to this age range. If you are approaching that phase where you're going to start to learn some new strategies to help cope with the school anxiety, ask your child what the teachers would say to do. Thankfully, these things are being talked about more in school. So if the teacher has already offered something, or a previous teacher, about how to manage anxiety or stress, ask the child about that. Ask them about what a doctor might tell them to do. And then this is an ideal segue to be able to go, let's go look up something that a doctor might say to do if you don't have ready access to a doctor, like an upcoming appointment or a counselor for your child. Go onto YouTube and say, hey, look, here's Dr. Karen. Oh, look, she specializes in anxiety. She's helped thousands of kids and young teens with school-related anxiety. Let's see what she has to say, and start with strategy number 3, which is the first mind-body strategy that we're going to get to. So sometimes that kind of approach, using your community, what would this person say to do? What would this person say to do? And adults especially, doctors, teachers, for younger kids. If you have a young teen that is dealing with this, like 12, 13, 14, that kind of thing, this might sound crazy to you, but ask them what they have learned on social media. TikTok is flooded with strategies to help manage anxiety. And I know this sounds so random and so crazy coming from someone who specializes in this, but there is good stuff out there. And if you ask your kid, what if they saw on TikTok that has talked about school-related anxiety and what to do, it's out there and they've probably seen it. And young teens relate more to peers than they do to adults. And so in that, a couple things are happening. One, you're validating their life experience as a young teen, that social media is important. And as much as we don't like this, it is the truth. And so it's worth tapping into what's good about that. What's good out there on social media, what's useful out there on social media, because they're sifting through so much anyway, then they'll start to focus more on that. So ask your young teen, what have you seen? Or what have other kids done? Like, what do you know? Does so-and-so have stress or anxiety? What are they doing? If you use that kind of peer group for the young teens, it works well. You can use that for the younger kids, but they probably don't have much of that. So I would go to what the teachers and the doctors have said to do for the particular age group. Strategy number 3. This is a mind-body strategy that's specifically a breathing strategy. And this strategy is called cocky breath. Cocky means crow's beak in Sanskrit, the yoga language. And so the way you do this breathing practice is you're going to make a crow's beak with your face. So you take an inhale through your nose and an exhale through a crow's beak. We'll do one more like right now. Inhale through the nose and exhale through the crow's beak. Cocky breath is probably one of the most calming breathing practices that can be done. It calms all energy down. So if someone's having a lot of worry thoughts, it helps that child get out of those worry thoughts. If they're having an upset stomach, it calms that upset stomach down. So this breathing strategy is very effective as a mind-body strategy. So this is one I would recommend, and it only takes about 5. If you do 5 of those in a mindful, slow practice, you're going to already feel calmed down. Now, you can do more if needed. Now, this one is a little difficult if you're in school. I don't think it's too obvious if you're sitting at your desk going, but if someone notices, you may be able to ask to go out into the hall or something like that to compose yourself. So number 3 strategy is cocky breath, and do it 5 times. Strategy number 4. This is also a mind-body strategy, and this comes from an ancient technique that has been modified and adapted to modern times. And so this one is breathing, but it's also mantra or affirmation, mudra, which is hand gesture, and meditation because it's concentration. And it goes like this. You're going to use all 5 physical fingers. Each finger represents a different energy. Your thumb represents fire energy. So this is the activator. So you're going to take your thumb and you're going to press it to the tip of your first finger, which is the air element. So this is going to activate calming breath. Then you're going to press your activator thumb, your fire, into the middle finger, which is your space element figure. So it incorporates the whole person, the whole space that you take up. Then you press your thumb to your ring finger, which activates earth element to feel steady, safe, and secure right in this present moment. And then you're going to press it to your pinky finger, which represents the water element, which helps you flow fluidly throughout your life. So we're going to do those finger presses in this exact order: first, second, third, fourth. Now we got the energies activated, and then we're going to say a mantra, which just means mind tool. It's an ancient word for mind tool, or affirmation. And one that is very common is peace begins with me. So doing this gesture, this mudra, this hand gesture, is going to calm it down because we're activating all the elements of ourself to calm down. And then you're going to add in that mantra, peace begins with me, or I can just breathe. You can say a variety of things, but peace begins with me is the classic. And then every time you say it and every time you do it, you're going to take a deep breath. You can do a cocky breath. Okay, so that's strategy number 4. Strategy number 5 is probably my favorite. I like things. I like tools that help calm down anxiety. And so strategy number 5 is to create a kit that influences all 5 physical senses. The physical senses are sense of touch, taste, sight, smell, and hearing. So when we influence those senses, we can use them to calm down our entire state by influencing everything we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell. And it doesn't have to be everything. It can be something that influences each of those. So I like for this strategy to build a little kit. And this is one of the kits that I have. You can get a little tin, you can get a little box, you can get a little Tupperware plastic container. It does not matter. Now, I recommend that these kits satisfy the 5 physical senses as best you can. This also obviously has to go along with school policy. If kids are allowed to have certain things and not other things, it'll have to be modified. Even if you can only get one of the senses in there, I think it's still worth having something that's going to influence the child through their senses. Because again, children, young teens are very body-centered. They are very physically influenced. So this helps give more of a direct line to that. So the things to include in a little sensory kit for your child to help calm their school-related anxiety. In this one, I painted this box and I wrote the word peace in there. So let's start with the sense of sight. So sight is things that you see. So in the box, you're gonna see the things. You can put little crystals, little stones in there. I have 3 in here. I have an amethyst for calm and peace. I have a moonstone for new beginnings, which is great for school. And then I have a rose quartz, which is unconditional love. And so this is things that I might look at. So I don't know if the kid could have this or they just open it up and see a pretty picture. If they can have that they can look at their rock and remember what it means. For some sense of taste, I have little Tic Tacs in here, tiny candies. I know I'm not a huge sugar promoter kinds of things, and it's not about the sugar, it's about the taste. So like if a kid can have like even the tiniest piece of candy, like a Tic Tac or a piece of gum, but they probably can't in school, even a sip of their water bottle, which just even to taste the water, it shifts their mind. This strategy, this last strategy, to influence the senses, it functions in a lot of ways. So the sensory system directly influences us. It's also a distraction, because remember what I said about how if the mind even thinks about anxiety, those symptoms can come on. They can be in a totally neutral situation and have an anxiety expression and have a stomach ache just because they're thinking about it. So when they start thinking about, oh, this is my wake up oil, this one makes me focus, so I'm going to smell it and I'm going to feel like more bright and capable, they just distracted themselves from the thoughts that are causing the anxiety. So it works in a variety of ways. Something to see, so either something painted in it or something to look at, something to touch. Again, the rocks can do that. If they can't have that, they can have like something maybe on their wrist that they can touch and feel. I know a lot of schools are doing away with any of the fidget toys, which I get, but also, man, those were pretty helpful in these situations. Something to smell. I have these little teeny tiny aromatherapy bottles. You can buy these on Amazon, you buy them a lot of places, and put the oil in there to give the different scents. I have something to hear, in that because we can hear things in our own head, I made these little cards with mantras on them. So like this one says, just the next one thing. So when I read that, I hear that in my head. You'd obviously have to modify that to single words, especially for younger kids or whatever their reading level is. So then you're hearing the words that are opposite of anxiety. So sight, touch, taste, smell, touch, taste, smell, and sound with the words. So get a little kit. And I think that this, if you're helping your child with anxiety, if you're watching this video, you're already totally invested. So thank you. Make this with them, get something. Obviously it has to follow along with school policy, but so whatever they can have in there, put that in their backpack. Again, it's going to serve as the sensory, it's going to serve as distraction, and it's going to serve as empowering. I can't tell you how many kids I've worked with that we have made these kits or a version of this kit, and they tell me they never use it, but knowing it's there helps. So again, that's another way that it can be useful. These strategies are a great place to start. This may not manage everything, but this is going to be a good start. Implementing any of these strategies is going to be better than none. Implementing all these strategies is going to give you an even better outcome. Please feel free to watch other videos I have that are more specific in terms of managing anxiety with mind-body strategies. Please feel free to ask any questions that you would like in the comments. I do try to look at those and respond. And a lot of times, especially with things like this, a parent asks a question that many other parents were thinking and then didn't ask, and then the answer is out there for everyone to benefit from. So please feel free to ask questions in the comments, and I'll do my best to get to those so you can have all the information that you need. I hope this video was helpful, and I really appreciate you watching. Thank you.